Bold and brazen and constitutional. That explains what you are looking at here on your screen, and there's one state that can make a move to a gold standard, which would undermine the Federal Reserve and prop up what constitutional money is all about. Let's talk about it as we explore. There is progress being made in the revolution for sound money, which is something that I have been talking about on this channel for quite some time, since more and more states are moving in this direction. There is a lot of exciting activity happening with no challenges from the federal government because it is completely 100% constitutional. And speaking of 100%, this is what's coming to us from the 10th Amendment Center. A bill filed in the Louisiana House would establish a 100% gold and silver backed transactional currency. So we're not just talking about a gold standard, we're talking about a bimetallic standard, which very well could come to light. You and I, though, we can have our own, and we do have our own gold and silver standard. Whenever we stack gold and silver, we measure wealth based in ounces, not necessarily fiat reserve, Federal Reserve notes. That's for sure. We have to obviously be price conscious. We do operate in the world of fiat. But notwithstanding, gold and silver are really it. They are the foundation of money in this country. And not only that, but in civilized society for thousands of years. Next time you are in the market for precious metals, take a look at channel sponsor Summit Metals. You might be surprised at the products they have. Their selection is widening, and they have some of the most competitive prices in the market today. Elevate your wealth with Summit Metals, summitmetals.com. The legislation would require the state treasurer to issue specie and establish a currency as determined practicable as authorized by Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution. And you may remember I reported just last year that Louisiana recognized gold and silver as legal tender in the state. And House Bill 386, filed by Representative Raymond Cruz, would build on that foundation. And that's part of where the battle lines are drawn. It really starts, as we've seen in other states, with removing taxation on gold and silver. Because why should you tax money? And that's what gold and silver are indeed. And so many of these states remove taxes and move to the next level. And so it's exciting to see this move in this direction. Now, specie, as defined in the bill, as a precious metal stamped into coins of uniform shape, size, design, content, and purity, suitable for customarily used as currency, as a medium of exchange, or as a medium for purchase, sale, storage, transfer, or delivery of precious metals in retail or wholesale transactions. Now, this is interesting. It also describes what currency is, defined in the proposed law as the representation of actual gold and silver specie and bullion held in a depository account by the depository account holder. Such representation shall reflect exact units of physical specie or gold and silver bullion in the pooled depository account in its fractional troy ounce measurement as provided in this chapter. Now, it is interesting that in the bill it defines specie as coins of uniform shape, size, design, content, and purity, such as you see here. These are all coins. But what about rounds? What about silver rounds and other things? I guess they wanted to really tighten it up here because this is a silver round. It is a generic in a pure sense in that it does not have a maker's mark on it. It just says 1 ounce fine silver, 3/9 fine silver. If it is tested, it will test out as pure silver for sure, but there's no backing by any government. It is not a coin or a bar that you could use, a silver bar that would be utilized for. Could that be used? It looks like not, according to this legislation. But obviously, those are bullion products, so it is an interesting dynamic, and it looks like it is limited to coins. It appears to be that way. But under the proposed law, this currency would be considered legal tender in the state. In establishing the currency, the treasurer shall establish a means to ensure that a person who holds the currency may use the currency as legal tender in payment of debt, or readily transfer or assign such currency to any other person or state by electronic means. Yes, indeed. So that sets up this currency backed by gold and silver, a gold standard, if you will, a gold and silver standard. This is pretty exciting that this could come to the realm of possibility if it goes through the legislative process. Specie gold and silver bullion backing the currency would be stored in an approved bullion depository, which could include a state bullion depository, the Texas Bullion Depository, or a similar depository established in another state, or a private vendor located in Louisiana. Now, a well-established Texan Bullion Depository, which is a neighboring state, but still, it is a different state. I think it would be better if they were to establish their own. However, that would involve some costs that maybe they don't want to incur now, but still, that could hinder the movement in this direction for the legislation. In practice, the passage of HB 386 would allow any person to conduct business transactions using gold or silver. Yes, pretty amazing. Talking about taking legal tender to the next step. Now, the passage of this bill would create a sound money alternative to the U.S. dollar in both physical and electronic form. Using gold and silver-backed transactional currency, any person or entity would be able to do business using a debit card that seemingly converts gold and silver to fiat currency in the background. Private individuals and businesses would be able to purchase goods and services using assets held in the Texas Bullion Depository in the same way that they use dollars in a bank today. Gold and silver-backed transactional currency would give people a way to shield themselves from the rapid loss of purchasing power inherent in the fiat dollar. And even with inflation, kind of falling back a little bit, we are in a disinflationary period, which means that inflation is coming down, but it is still there and above the normal 2% target by the Federal Reserve. Notwithstanding, even at 2%, it's a loss in value every year, to the point now where this Federal Reserve note has lost about 98 to 99% of its value since the Federal Reserve Act was enacted on December the 23rd, 1913. Gold and silver, through the course of time, have preserved its purchasing power when translated to fiat dollars, and that's exactly what this bill would do. Gold and silver-backed transactional currency would give people a way to shield themselves from the rapid loss of purchasing power inherent to this fiat dollar, to dollars. The United States Constitution states in Article 1, Section 10, that no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender of payment of debts. Currently, all debts and taxes in most states are either paid with Federal Reserve notes, which were authorized as legal tender by Congress, or with coins issued by the U.S. Treasury, very few of which have any precious metals in them, although they do have copper, and now there's a chance that the cent could go away because even though they're copper-coated zinc, it is too expensive to make them because of the government's own fault by devaluing the currency through the Federal Reserve System. Federal Reserve destroys the constitutional monetary system by creating a monopoly based on its fiat paper currency. Without the backing of gold and silver, the central bank can easily create money out of thin air or with a keystroke. The Federal Reserve destroys this constitutional monetary system by creating a monopoly, and not only devalues your purchasing power over time, it also allows the federal government to borrow and spend far beyond what would be possible in a sound money system. Without the Fed, the U.S. government wouldn't be able to maintain all of its constitutional wars and programs. The Federal Reserve is the engine that drives the most powerful government in the history of the world. State laws that facilitate and encourage the use of sound money create a playing field where people can push back against the Fed's monetary malfeasance. Ultimately, it could create a scenario where people could drive out the bad fiat with good, sound money. Essentially, that's a reverse of Gresham's law that would take place. So HB 386 has been referred now to the House Committee of Commerce, where it might get a hearing, or it must get a hearing and pass by a majority vote before moving through the legislative process. So at the very beginning stages of this, but the very fact that it has been introduced so boldly, I think tells us something and gives us an idea that we are moving in a different direction in this country, hence the sound money revolution. It's an amazing thing to see, and we're going to keep track of it. This channel is the most consistent, talking about issues with relation to sound money legislation in the states, and this a massive move now to see this with groups like the Sound Money Defense League and others. In fact, I recently did an interview with J.P. Cortez of that organization, so I hope you will check that out. And so we're going to keep pressing on with the latest news there, and I want to extend a multitude of gratitude to all of you for being here and watching this video. And I do daily news and analysis in the world of precious metals, so I hope you would consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Press that notifications bell so that you can be apprised of the latest news that makes its way across your device. And I want to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and hold on to your sound money.